Hey there, Zlatko here. Welcome to What is My Brain podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I get the opportunity to chat with fellow founders and business operators about their journey and how they got to where they are now, where they are going, and how they're going to get there. I'm planning on bringing guests and touching on topics such as running multiple businesses, executing ideas, and just spitballing about random topics and current events. It's a casual conversation, and that will hopefully bring value to anyone that decides to listen. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for tuning in. Awesome. James, thank you so much, man, for being on the podcast. The What is My Brain podcast. That's what I'm calling it. I don't know how much I told you about it, but that's what I'm calling it because it's just thinking about the brain in different formats, whether it's business related, personal life, mental health, all of the things. So that's kind of the name behind it. And I want to say thank you for jumping on. I know we had a chat previously when I was kind of getting this up and running again. So I'm going to leave it to you to kind of introduce yourself, what you do, and then we can roll from there. So thank you, man. Thank you for being on.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. I love the name, by the way. And before I explain who I am, who's the
Wait till I
most
show you the
interesting-
branding.
Who's the most interesting person's brain you've ever spoken to?
You know, I am actually, I'm more intrigued. Interesting brain has so many different, but like I'm more intrigued about how people go from like the beginning, like an idea, to actually do. I'm going to speak on a very high level, like an Elon Musk, right? Somebody that can run like 4 different multi-billion-dollar empires, right? There's a person like that, and then there's the person where you go, they're doing a day job and they're just tired all the time and they don't have energy for anything. And it's like, what does that come down to? Which like pieces of your brain are hitting? Is it the dopamine is so high that you just can't let go? Or is the other person who's like really sad, just in such a rut that they can't get out of it and do more for themselves or like improve that, right? So that's kind of how I think about it. So yeah, I don't know who the most interesting brain is, but man, I hope I find out soon.
Yeah, I think you will with this podcast, speaking to many interesting people.
Yeah.
But for me, I've gone through various different stages over the years. Sort of started out in my career, wanted to go into marketing for startups. I worked for B2B marketing agencies, had a bunch of fun there. I always wanted to run a business. I didn't quite know what that was going to be, but I wanted to have control over my time. I wanted a team. I wanted to have lots of money. And while I was working at the agency, I would be freelancing on the side. And that was sort of a little bit of extra side income, side hustles. That's when I discovered indie hackers. And right now, I probably consider myself an indie hacker with lots of different projects. I left my last marketing full-time job about a year ago now. And most of my money is still from freelancing, focusing on podcasting. I've got a podcasting productized service called PodPanda. And then I have various other things that I do. My other side project is a podcast called Indie Bites. I've met some amazing people through the Indie Bites podcast, where I speak to founders in 15-minute episodes, tell their stories. Some people have big indie businesses, others have these smaller ones, so sort of between 3 and 20k a month businesses. Lots of them are developers, others have made courses and all sorts. And I'm inspired by people who strike out on their own to start a business or even work in a full-time job and doing a side hustle that is making a little bit of revenue, and sort of speaking to them to find out how they did it and inspire others to do the same. So I do Indie Bites. I've just started another podcast with my friend Dan Rowden, who runs a portfolio of projects. He's another indie hacker, where we speak about our projects, what we're working on, and we've got a nice little audience that now listens to that. What else do I do, Zlatko? Oh yeah, and I hand make leather wallets in my spare time.
I actually bought one. I'm still waiting for the coasters to.
Of course, yes, you did. Thank you for ordering. That was my best week of sales ever for the handmade leather wallets.
Hell yeah!
I sold 7 to my friend who has a small indie company. He was like, "Yeah, I want to buy some branded wallets for the team. Will you do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And so he bought 7 of them. Then you swooped in with your order for the coasters, which I have shipped to you now. So thank you for that. And that's sort of my my way to get away from the screens. And the idea of all this Slack go is that I have multiple different revenue streams all providing
Hell
for
yeah.
me, and I have flexibility over my time and what I do. And I definitely wouldn't go back to a full-time job.
Oh man, that makes me so happy. I don't even know what to touch on. You like, when you just like zap things a little bit, and you just kept like hitting you like with those like points of like how you're doing multiple things. First and foremost, I want to ask you, your marketing job, when you were doing that, were you just doing that job, or did you have other side things going on at the time?
I was always doing things on the side. I was
Okay.
always trying to
And
figure
actually
out ways
making
to make
money.
money.
I understand doing things on the side, but were you actually like making like enough income where you were like, hey, I can take this to the next like level where I need to leave my job and then
Yeah.
go full time? Or was it always like, hey, I like a little comfort, but I also liked a little bit of the side hustle?
Yeah, definitely like the comfort. I've
Okay.
always spent a lot of money as well, so I liked having that monthly paycheck income
Yep.
coming in.
Hmm.
So I had that baseline, and the money I was earning from my side projects wasn't that much. It was only probably about 18 months ago I started Indie Bites and really started pushing my freelance services on the side, which enabled me to leave my job. Before then, it wasn't that much. It was very inconsistent. I didn't know really what I wanted to do. So I was just doing video production on the side of my job because I knew I liked cameras, I liked YouTube, I was getting better at it. So yeah, never did earn enough. Really, when I left my job, conventional wisdom would say either build up savings so
Hmm.
you have runway, or make sure that your income from your side projects is regularly making more than your salary. So then you leave and you just can continue as you go with that extra freedom and flexibility. Another note on that, you end up halving your income if you do that, because you'll have your salary and also your side project income. So you might be used to having like a double income, and then you halve it when you leave your job. So
Yep.
there's never like a right or wrong answer of when you should leave your full-time job. But
I I
um,
agree. I 100% agree. And I think the best things happen when you just do it and you don't think about. I know it's kind of crazy to think about. Oh, people always say, well, where am I gonna, because they're so used to that comfort zone. Like I have a bunch of friends, and I talk about this a lot, that everyone wants to start a business. Everyone thinks you start a business, you make all this money, and it's like, no, like it's really the opposite way. You're actually spending a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy. And to hear you say that you do multiple things, kind of taking it back, like how did you, so obviously marketing, you did some side hustle, but when you actually went full, like, hey, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to productize the podcast. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that, and start splitting up your time like that. Do you feel like that's what drives you to continue to create more? Or do you look at it more so like, okay, I'm going to be good at, like, when I have, let's say, I don't know, 5 different streams of income that are bringing you in, like, I don't know, $2,000 to $3,000 a month or something like that. Like, what's your mind state in that? Is it like continue building and hand it off and delegate it to other people and then kind of keep that rolling? Or do you want to like control everything and just only have like a set amount of things?
yeah, my perspective on this has sort of changed over time because uh, some people like going down the route of focusing on one thing, and just that's fine. For me, I enjoy trying lots of different things and going where my interests take me. And it
Hmm.
also has the benefits of not being reliant on any one income stream. When I spoke to Daniel Vassallo, who uh, is a strong proponent of having multiple revenue streams, running multiple projects, he has this thing called a portfolio of small bets, where he just does lots of different things. And I've always had loads of different interests. I've always wanted to try different things, different sports, different activities. I wanted to learn new things. It's always my parents say like I go through these phases where I have like 2 or 3 months where I'll be really into something, whether that be
Yep.
football, tennis,
Yep.
cycling, and I'll like spend hours researching it, trying to get better, trying to learn. During COVID, I got really into cooking. I was like, okay, I need the
Hell
best
yeah.
pots and pans. I need to figure out what nice recipes can I cook, and so yeah, I've always had lots of interests, and uh, actually now with the things that I'm doing to earn money, are me is me being delving into those interests. So with the leather wallets, it's a fun thing which is physical with my hands, I'm not too worried about how much money it earns because there's money coming in from other things, but it's a fun
It's more fun.
sandbox for me
Mhm.
to learn new things. It's e-commerce. I've never really done much e-commerce before, but I can get better at product photography. I
Mhm.
can understand and learn email marketing a bit better, how to run a consumer business, uh, which takes more social media. And so
Yeah.
I get to try a lot of things because I'm not reliant on that to pay the bills, and it makes
Right.
it a lot more fun for me. And I want my life to be fun.
Exactly. I heard somebody say this. I can't take credit for it. I'm one of those people that burns really bright, but I don't burn really long. So meaning like I like
Mm.
the immediate, like what you said, that you jump into like something for 3 months. But to me, it's like I take that a little bit differently. Some people say, "Oh, you start this and then you don't like finish it," but like finish what is finishing at this point? Like any product you build, you can continue working on it. Any product you know what I mean? Like right now, you have your e-commerce store and
Yeah,
you're selling,
yeah,
let's say, 5 different products. Sure, you can go to 10, you can go to 20, you can go to 50, but maybe that's not what I want. Maybe this is my finish line for now, and then I'll create another one when I feel like, oh, now I can go into more of this or whatever it is. And I feel like a lot of people see things that like start and finish. I don't really look at things that way. Like I like to put because I feel like ideas derive from different ideas, and when I put something on paper and say, okay, this is my next project, I'll sleep on it and I'll be like, oh, that's like sample size. Like I'm talking now, like let's go a little bit bigger than what we originally thought, because now like things are processing way differently and you're thinking of differently about the problem. So dude, I love that. I love that. I feel like this entire podcast that I'm putting together and doing is literally about talking to people not only about running their businesses but how they're doing multiple things. And the fact that you're in the same ballpark as me, where I like to just dive into so many different things and have my hands in so many different options, is always a really really nice way to like explore what sticks and what doesn't, because not
yeah,
everything's going to stick, right?
yeah, exactly. And it's interesting you mentioned about you enjoying the starting phase, and
I'm
people
a
have said
builder,
to me,
man. I like building. Like I like building.
some people say I'm like a starter, not finisher, because I really enjoy that early stage. So many of us really enjoy the early stage.
Yeah.
And also the concept of finishing. Like, of course, there's no finish. It's like when you set goals or things you want to achieve, it's like when you get there, is then what?
Right.
Do you go for more? And it's like you always want to strive towards this goal. And I set goals to myself. I want to achieve things.
Of course.
But if I can enjoy the journey of getting there, as cliche as it sounds like,
Yeah.
if I can enjoy the process of getting there, of playing, of experimenting with new things, then that's more important to me than just getting to the destination, getting to the finish, getting to that goal. Because once you get there, it's like, then what? Is it more?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's literally, I mean, even just simply across like software, I'm like, oh, I need this tool. Like we should go build this tool. And I sit there and I write up an entire scope document. Like this is how it needs to work. This is how my brain works and all these other things. And sometimes we'll start those projects and sometimes they never see the day of light. But there's times where I've looked back on things 2 years that I talked about 2 years ago, and I come back and I was like, that is still relevant right now. And we should work on that. And then we'll start like working on it. So no, I think that the starting thing is a huge piece for me, and I absolutely love that. Where would you say right now, as we talk on a podcast, and we're talking that you have a productized business on a podcast, like where do you see podcasts going in the next like 5 years? From let's talk about it from we had the early YouTubes, and now you have the people that are just like that's their day and night job, everything. But where do you see podcasting, like let's say 3 to 5 years from now, in terms of, let's say, the revenue side, let's say the growth side? What are some new ideas that you see coming about that you're like, that's super clever? Like I'd love to know more, because you've been obviously in this space a lot longer than me. I started and
Yeah.
then never really continued going, just because of all the stuff I told you about.
I'm hugely bullish on podcasting.
Yeah.
I think it's such a great format. You're seeing now everyone is starting podcasts. Everyone wants to have a podcast. It's
Mhm.
such a wonderful way to connect with your audience, with your friends, with your customers, with your clients. People are doing internal podcasts. People are experimenting with different formats. So you have interview shows like this. You have different adaptations of interviews where you might have a narrative section of it. You have story-driven podcasts. You have original podcast agencies that are coming up just to produce original podcasts, like you would do a film studio, so podcast studios. There's more infrastructure being built around that, not only on the internet, but in real life. People making physical in-person podcast studios, people buying microphones. And we're still early in it, Zlatko.
Mhm.
Like there's COVID, there was a big boom in podcasts. So it went from like 1 million podcasts to 2 million, where people had time and they're like, oh, I'll start a podcast. But 2 million versus how many YouTube channels there are there. I wish I had the number of YouTube channels, but it's still small. Um,
I think it's like upwards of like 30 million or something like that.
it's high. We're still early in podcasting. There's still so
Yeah.
much opportunity. And whether it's good or bad podcasting, I don't know. But Spotify putting in a huge amount of investment, and they
Mhm.
still are. 2 years ago, they bought two companies. They bought Gimlet, which is one of those podcast studios. They
Mhm.
did the podcast Startup, which was very popular. They make like top of the range podcasts in terms of production value. Then they bought Anchor, which is a podcast host, and they have a bunch of tools for producing podcasts. Spotify then bought exclusive rights for the Joe Rogan show. They're now
Yep.
producing original shows, and so
Which
Spotify.
I
Go
think the Joe Rogan thing, and we could talk about that after you
on.
finish your thought, is a terrible deal.
What, for Joe Rogan or for Spotify?
I think mostly for Joe Rogan, in all honesty.
Yeah, I mean, well, he went from being someone who is independent to now having a boss,
A
kind
record
of,
label,
of his
basically.
podcast. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I mean, when it gets to that amount of money, like how much does the amount really make a difference? And the amount he was earning previously with podcasts. And to your question, where's podcast going to be in 3 to 5 years? We've got all this investment going into it. I've said it's such an amazing medium for people to communicate, for people to have conversations. I can only see it growing. I can only see more people starting it. People are going to become more creative with how they're doing podcasts. I think a lot more people will have them not only for sharing content with an audience, but for meeting new people. It's such a great medium for messaging someone and having a conversation like this. We would never have had this conversation if the podcast as a medium did not facilitate it. So I think more
Exactly.
people will have it. The technology is going to advance. If Spotify are pushing it the way they are in terms of analytics,
Hmm.
promotion, growth, the one thing that podcasting does need to change or improve on is discovery. If you start a podcast, it's much like starting a business in the sense that you need to market it, you need to find
Right.
the right audience for your show, it needs to deliver them some sort of value or some sort of entertainment, and they have to share it. You may need to use other marketing channels in order to grow it because it hasn't got that inbuilt discovery mechanism that, say, YouTube has. If you start a YouTube channel, you can start putting out good content, optimize it for SEO, share it with a few people. If the algorithm picks it up, you are onto a winner with podcasting. You just don't have that.
Exactly. Exactly. And where would you say most of your like podcasts, is it sponsorships? Is it like where does most of your revenue there like come from, or is it more on the productized side?
Yeah, no, for the podcast itself, so for Indie Bites and also for No More Mondays, 95% of revenue is sponsors.
Okay.
And it's
And how long did
still
it take you to get to like the sponsor level to be able to?
yeah, yeah. A lot of people ask me that because I got a sponsor from episode one. Well, episode two, really. I think that, well, some people don't want sponsors for their show. They're like, oh, I don't know what level I can get to until I start charging. If you
Right.
have an audience, however small, especially for those first few episodes, you can get a sponsor if you want. Because those first episodes, as your podcast grow, the value of that sponsor slot will increase because your podcast
Right.
is growing. People are going to go through the backlog, listen to those previous episodes. So uh, from the very start, I thought I wanted my podcast to be something I could monetize. I reached out to my friends or people in the industry who I thought the value that I was going to bring with the audience for Indie Bites, they would be worthwhile sponsoring. So I reached out to my friend Charlie. I said, Charlie, you run a community of indie hackers. My podcast is going to be for indie hackers. If you want to come to an agreement, started off really cheap. I said £25 to sponsor the first few episodes, and I'll give you a discount for life. He was like, yeah, sure. Great. That's a good deal. Like, I can punt £25 on it. And as the podcast has grown, I've been slowly increasing my rate. So now the podcast is £225 an episode. I get about 1,000 downloads an episode. When people ask, like, how much should I charge? It depends. There is no standard.
Right. Which is fun, right? Like, because you could literally make up your own number, and hopefully
you can make up your own number. It depends on the value they or the sponsor is going to get from that. How active are your audience in paying for things that the sponsor has? Is it aligned? Like, if someone, my audience is a lot of indie hackers and developers. If someone was selling football equipment, that probably wouldn't be the right sponsor for me. So I don't know how many of my audience are actually playing football. But my current sponsor, Ahrefs, is an SEO tool which helps you grow and market your business.
Right.
All these indie hackers that are starting these side hustles, they want to grow it, and Ahrefs is a great tool to do so. Ahrefs are spending £225 a slot. If they just get one person through that, the lifetime value is way more than 225.
Right.
So they've got 1,000 people and only one person to convert, and then it's paid off and positive ROI.
I love it. No, that's really awesome, man. And congrats. And did you, when you were building up your podcast, were you kind of going in with the framework like, hey, I'm actually gonna from the get-go structure this as like a revenue driven thing? Or was it more so like, hey, I want to shoot the shit with people and see where it goes?
I always wanted to generate revenue from it. I wanted the podcast as a product to be great value for people listening. It's pretty well planned. I research guests a lot. I know what I want the guests to say. I know what I want to pull out of the episode. Sometimes I'll go down a rabbit hole and meander through a conversation and probe on a specific thing that I find interesting that I might not have prepped for research for. But then it really comes into the editing process where I turn it into this finely tuned 15-minute episode that I know people are going to get a lot of value from. So yeah, I did think it was going to be something that is generating revenue. I also think it's a long-term game. That's why I'm doing the freelancing, the productizing on the side, because that is what's going to pay my bills for now while I build up the podcast. I need to be consistently producing those good episodes, working on growing it. As I say, it's like a business. A lot of work goes into a podcast in order to grow it. And so in the long term, I think it's going to be lucrative. There's other ways you can generate income from it. But like my focus in general is bringing value to the audience and making sure that core product, that 15-minute episode is always free and always valuable to people. I want to make sure my sponsors are happy as well. So they're getting good access to the audience. My ad read's going to be not something that people want to skip. And also for the listeners, I want to make sure the sponsor is relevant and useful to them. I'm not just going to take any sponsor on.
Right. Absolutely. No, that's really awesome, man. I appreciate you explaining that. So what would you, in terms of like the next, so tell me all the things. So you have the leather brand, the e-commerce brand. You have the productized podcast course, right? Is it a course? Is it technically?
Oh yeah, the course. I can't believe I forgot about the course, Latko. Yeah.
Hey, I'm trying to make sure that people have all the right tools. Again, make sure if anybody does want to start this, that they, like, you sent me simply your little Notion page, and I was like, this is money. Like, we're doing this. So I want to make sure that people have the same access, whether it's just going to your, website or reaching out to you, whatever that is.
I love doing this website, by the way. Let me run through it in like a revenue order. So the one that makes the most revenue is my productized service, PodPanda.
Okay, before you go down the rabbit hole, do top of revenue and then say how much time you spend on each of them, because that's what I'm curious about as well.
Oh, I don't know that. I don't know how
just
much
do
time
like 10%, 15%.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so my productized service makes the most revenue. It varies from month to month, so it's about £3,000 or £4,000 a month, and that is just basically freelancing packaged up. That's all it is. It's nothing much bigger. I do all the work still, but it's nice where people can just go on and purchase an edit or purchase a starter plan if they want to. And I probably spend about 50% of my time on that. It's what you might refer to as work. And then it all goes into the fun stuff, the side projects. The next one is, in terms of revenue, is Indie Bites. I've recently increased the price of sponsors, increased the frequency that I'm uploading episodes. It's now 2 a week for £225 an episode, so it's about £2,000 a month. If I get 2 episodes out, and if I get all sponsors for each of them paying that amount, there's differences in, sometimes I offer discounts for people if they buy in bulk. But that probably, if I'm doing 2 a week, that's maybe another 20%. So what am I up to? I've spent 70%. Okay, cool. And then I've got No More Mondays. That's probably another 5% of time, but maybe how much revenue does that do? That's it chops and changes again, and it's split revenue as well. So there's that, and then there's the wallets, which doesn't make that much revenue because I dip in and out of it when I want. That's another 5%. What am I up to? 80%. My course, and I've not put this in the monthly revenue things because it was like a launch when it got its most revenue. It got $1,500, which is about just over £1,000. This is a course where I show people how to make a podcast in less than a 2-hour time commitment a week. And that doesn't take much time, but I think the more time I put into it, the more money I get out of it, because that will be time spent on marketing and promotion, improving the course, re-engaging people that have bought it, maybe upselling them to the editing service if they want the podcast that they've created edited. So I can't really put a time percentage on that. I've got 20% left. Can I put 20% on doing just fun stuff, figuring stuff out, going and playing golf?
I was just about to say, you're saving no
and
time for fun shit.
yeah. I've given myself a whole 20% for this, and Zlatko,
That's what you should be doing.
The reason I am an indie hacker or an entrepreneur is to give me this freedom and flexibility so I can do the things that I enjoy. Part of that is family time, going and see my little baby niece who's coming up to a year, and she's so cute and brilliant. And I go and play tennis. I do tennis twice a week, tennis coaching twice a week, and I love it. And I've recently discovered golf, and golf is just a brilliant, fun thing to do if I just want to get away from my screen, out of my office, or riding my motorbikes. Right? Great fun, just go and explore somewhere. Again, getting out of the flat and having all of these projects which don't have a direct correlation to my time means that I can, whenever I want, go and do these fun things.
Absolutely. And in terms of kind of handling everything, because having all of those things requires obviously running the email side of things, running all this. Do you have a virtual assistant or anybody that helps you with this?
No, I have considered it though. A few people, I'm part of a community called Weekend Club, which is how we met.
Yeah.
And there's a few people who have been using virtual assistants, but I've not really thought of what I can use them for. Have you tried a virtual assistant before? Do you find them useful?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not, but I haven't, just because it's kind of at the point where I'm more of like building teams. Like I can handle my shit, right? Like I can handle my own emails. I know how to like minimize that as much as possible. But at the same time, like I kind of like when I do things, when I really need help, like I look to maybe like build a team to like really do the work instead of just like, hey, do A, B, and C every single day or every single week. Cause like, I don't know. It just, I haven't gotten to that point yet, I guess is my real answer. Is like, I don't really see a need like you, but yeah, it's a really interesting topic though. Cause I know a lot of people that once they get one, they're just like, oh, this is everything I ever
Yeah.
needed, and and all that stuff. So
Yeah, well, I've recently installed Rise into my laptop, right? And this tracks basically everything you do, much like I think Toggle is another one, or Rescue
right,
Time is another one, where it just sort of sits on your laptop and tracks all the apps you're doing, the amount of time you're spending on each one. And I've installed this to sort of see how much I was working, sort of where I was spending my time. And it was very interesting. I don't work nearly as much as I thought I did.
yeah, yeah,
Like on
that's
average,
amazing.
maybe 5, 6 hours a day. Some days it's like 2 hours where I'm just logging on and I'll look at it and it will just be Twitter or Slack, where I'm just having conversations with people. So there's not a huge pressure on my time.
Right.
I don't have a great deal of emails. A lot of the productized service is automated. If I am doing stuff, it's on Twitter DMs and asking people to come on podcasts and doing prep and research. But it's all sort of when I want to do it. If like my ideal day is waking up at 5:30. I've
Yeah, take
realized
me
I'm an
through
early
that.
bird.
Take
My
that.
ideal day, yeah. So waking up at 5:30, I realized I'm an early bird. Didn't think I was, but getting up at 5:30, I feel like I've got a superpower. I'm up before
Hmm.
everyone else, shower, go to the gym, and do my training. Great thing about going to the gym in the morning is you've already done it, and then you don't have to worry about it for the rest of the day, and it feels great. It like wakes you up, and then by the time I get back after an hour at the gym, it's maybe 7 a.m. And then I've got 2 more hours before the rest of the world wakes up to start doing stuff. So, sort of between 7 and let me say 10 or 11 a.m., I'm going to get some work done. Whether
Nice.
it be client edits I've got to do, whether it's an indie bite edit I've got to do, whether it's organizing a few recordings. And then by 11, I'm going to go out and enjoy something. I'm going to go to the driving range. I'm going to walk down into town and sit in a coffee shop and read a book. I'm going to go and see my little niece. I love going out at this sort of time because most other regular people are at work, so things aren't as busy. And then maybe I'll do that until I don't know 3 or 4 p.m. Then I'll come back. I've already done 4 hours work at this point because I started at
Right.
7. I'll come back and do whatever else I need to do in the evening.
I love
Maybe
it.
it's another 2, 3, 4 hours until 6, 7, 8. I'm very lucky. Well, I'm lucky in this sense. I'm young, no kids, no wife. It's fine. I can work late if I want to. Um, and yeah, things are winding down at that time in the rest of the world. And so I just get a little bit of work done. And then by 8 p.m., I'm having some dinner. Maybe I've ordered a delivery. And then I'll watch a bit of TV, a bit of Netflix, maybe watch a film, sleep by 10.
Love it, man. Thank you for breaking that down. That's really, really helpful. I'm same way. I have a dog, and I'm up, 5:30 in the morning. Go out on a walk. Nobody else is out. Just getting my nice cup of coffee,
It's
getting my
brilliant, isn't
yeah.
it?
It's the best, man. I feel like people who don't wake up early miss out on so much, and so much time. I feel like is goes like sort of. I hate going out and seeing just everybody out, and I'm like,
Oh,
oh man,
don't
that's
like it, yeah.
depressing. So it's just yeah, man. I love that. I'm same thing, early bird. If I can, I'm also training myself to get up at like 4:30 now. I'm like, let's get even
I
up a
love it.
little
I
bit
love it.
a little bit earlier. Like let's be up when it's dark still. So um but yeah, man, that's really awesome. So what's the next project? You got your hands on anything else that you're looking to jump into? You're like, oh, this has been kind of brewing in the back of my mind.
I actually not a great deal because over the past few years I've been starting new things, and if I have a idea, I'm gonna start exploring it or start it or build an MVP, get some validation, see if it's gonna work, or maybe it's just something for fun to learn. Like the course I made, that was an idea that I had. 2 weeks later, it was launched and making money. That is a sort of time cadence that I'd like to do. But where I've got these things that I've now built and they're launched and they're out there, I feel like I've got a good base to build from. I don't think adding many more projects is going to help me a great deal. I've got the podcast, which I absolutely love doing. I launched No More Mondays just over a month ago. That's another podcast that I'm doing. So I've got a lot of things, and I feel that if I put some effort now into growing these, Indie Bites is like my baby. I feel it has potential. I want to work on it. I feel like the podcast course, it's nice revenue because people pay one. Like, I've built it once and people pay multiple times, and I don't have to do much when that sale happens. And then with the wallets, I've really enjoyed doing them, and I'd like to get 5, 6, £700 a month from making these wallets. The only trouble with that is I then have to make them. There's materials involved. It's
Yeah.
not as profitable as some of the other things. I mean, one other thing that I thought of doing is a productized service for making YouTube videos. So for a while, I made YouTube videos for Riverside.fm, built out a system for creating these videos pretty efficiently. And where I've got PodPanda, which is productized service for podcast editing, I'm thinking of doing VidPanda, which is a productized service for making these YouTube videos for SaaS companies. So if I was going to launch anything in the next few months, it will probably be that. But again, that's just freelancing packaged up.
Right. That's amazing. That's amazing. Um, and in terms of just, you know, uh, are you? Let me ask you this: are you a football fan?
I am, yeah.
Awesome. So how often would you say that like you just take time away to go? I mean, do you even take time to go like, all right, for 2, 3 days, I'm not touching my computer, I'm not doing anything. Like, do you go on spurts like that?
No, and
Like, go to a game, you're like, I'm gonna go, into another city for a while, like just kind of,
well, just time completely away from my
yeah,
laptop, my computer.
yeah,
So
just completely disconnect.
yeah, I need to do this more,
Hmm.
100%, because I'm pretty much on 7 days a week, and I thought about this in particular when burnt out towards the end of last year. I went away for a week with my sister, with my dad, with my sister's baby, and I just didn't touch anything for a week. Completely disconnected, completely switched off. I came back a different person,
So
completely
much more
different
energy,
person.
right?
Felt amazing, and I had the sort of same thing. I worked too hard. I didn't take enough breaks for another 3, 4 months, and I was just so tired. And did a week away, disconnected from everything, came back, felt great. And I was thinking, maybe I need to set aside a few days more regularly where I'm completely switched off from everything.
Yeah.
Where, but I don't know how to do that. I don't know, Zachko, if you can give me some advice on how I can like get ahead of myself. So like I've scheduled episodes, I've spoken to clients, and then I give myself the space for 3 or 4 days so I can maybe go on a motorbike trip somewhere or golfing trip and just switch off from
Yeah,
everything. So I think
so
that would help me.
I actually did this for the first time last year as well. I went through like a complete burnout stage,
Mm.
just like mentally just drained. The way I would describe that to people is I felt very like bleh, like empty,
Yeah,
n-
bleh. Yeah, good way.
like completely empty, right? And so I talked to my girlfriend and she was like, "Man, you need to just like step away." And I was like, "Yeah, I need to just go somewhere, be by the water, be by the beach just to relax." So I took my dog, I scheduled I set myself an Airbnb down there. I went to Pismo Beach. It's just a nice little area where you could just be like, it's like a little more homey town, and you can just be on the water with your, like, park your
Yeah,
truck out there, be on the water, and just not do anything. And I literally was there for like 6 days, and I came
amazing.
back, and it was the best time away that I had in terms of just completely. I didn't bring my laptop. I didn't do anything. I just brought my phone and my iPad so I could do some writing, but I had no internet connection. I had none of that stuff. So it was amazing. And I keep thinking to myself, like, every year I want to try to take at least 2 weeks off like that, whether it's split, maybe first 6 months, second 6 months type of thing, but to just really fully disconnect and come back. Cause it was like you said, the energized and like feel like you can just go 100 miles an hour at like for the next like 3 months type of thing.
Yeah, and we can sometimes fall in the trap because we enjoy doing our work. We enjoy
But
doing
it's
this
still
stuff.
training.
Yeah, 100% still draining, and waking up with that feeling of blur of I don't want to work on the stuff that I'm excited about.
Right.
Uh, that
It's a
I
real
was
thing.
previously excited about, that previously having so much fun doing, is because of not having the breaks and disconnecting. I've just looked up Pisno Beach. It looks amazing. The thought of just being disconnected for a week again, I love the idea of it. I want to do it more regularly. I want to do it for more than twice a week. In the UK, we have a lot more holiday than you, or if we're working, we have like 4 or 5 weeks. Normal people get that. But since often indie entrepreneurs are sacrificing weekends because we want to work on our weekends, just take more of that time where you can
Yeah.
get away. I'm like contemplating, how do I get a day or two every week where I'm just off, completely disconnected, so I can have that time to recover or refresh myself. Thinking about that week I did in Spain with my dad and my sister, it was just so lovely, and I want to do that more.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's exactly where I'm at, and I feel like those are the things, like some people say like, "Oh yeah, you're doing what you love," but even happiness has its times of stress and burnout,
Mm.
right? Like even that gets to a point where you're like, "I love what I'm doing, but I'm been really doing it for a while, and I need to step away." So yeah, I
Yeah,
100% agree.
and also
Question,
when you're monetizing stuff that you
yeah,
enjoy, there are elements that mean it's not quite as 100% fun as if you were just doing it for fun. So I love making
exactly.
podcasts, I really do. But when it's for clients and they have a specific, they want the edit done, or it's building their equity and not mine, I think, oh, it's not quite as enjoyable. So there is an element of that.
Exactly, exactly. So, question for you, I should have probably in the beginning when you were chatting, what is your overall background? Were you always marketing, or do you have like developer experience? Like, what is your overall kind of starting stages? What got you into doing what you're doing?
Yeah, it was marketing, just working at marketing agencies. I was a HubSpot partner for a while, and I use HubSpot. Zacko.
Yeah,
I helped onboard B2B companies onto HubSpot for their marketing, for their sales enablement. It was fine. I did some work for some cool companies. I got to go to Boston a few times for the HubSpot conference called Inbound. I met
yeah,
the founders of HubSpot, recorded podcasts with them. I think it's a great tool. But I'm less interested in marketing now. It was quite uh, not
repetitive.
worrying. It was definitely repetitive. Um, Doing the marketing that I was doing and doing it for other people as well. I wanted to explore, try new things, partly with the wallets. I'm trying new marketing things. I'm
Hell
trying
yeah,
different ways to grow. And when you're doing marketing
absolutely.
for other people, it's just not as fun.
Yeah, exactly,
I've
exactly.
thought about becoming more technical, but with the tools available to create businesses without being technical now, I've just thought I'm going to focus on what I'm good at and use those tools available to me, and maybe help some of those more technical people or partner with a technical person if I want to build software.
100%. I love that, man. I love that. Cool. Well, I think this was an amazing episode one. I really appreciate you being on. Well, I guess I should ask you anything else you want to chat about? Any questions? Any concerns? Emotional outbursts?
Yeah, well, I was just looking at this map of Pismo Beach, and I found
Yeah.
something out the other day, Zachko, that you have like state capitals, right?
Right. Right.
And I was thinking, well, the state capital um, of California must be like LA or San Francisco.
It's
It's
Sacramento.
Sacramento.
Yeah, that's where I live like 15 minutes from Sacramento.
What? Why is it Sacramento?
I
Is it like more
I'm not a
historic?
history. I'm not. I think so, but I'm not a history buff at all. So I honestly don't even know the history behind Sacramento. It's crazy. Like some people think like that's insane. I'm like, I just don't give a shit.
What's Sacramento like? Is it a nice place? Is it big? Is it?
Yeah, it's a pretty big city overall. It's really up and coming because it's kind of the it's a it was a little bit more of like a hidden gem from a perspective of like you have the Bay Area, which is Silicon
Yeah.
Valley, which is like 2 hours away, And so people moved up to Sacramento for the cost of living. Housing is cheaper and all these other things. So it's kind of started having like this migration to Sacramento, and now they're bringing in more places to like more restaurants, more things to do on like a night basis for younger
Yeah.
folks and all that. And so that's actually bringing in a lot of people from all over the place to come to Sacramento. And a lot of people are moving here, especially when the pandemic happened. I mean, you were getting like a Silicon Valley salary in Sacramento, you're living like a
Mm,
king. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of people that just would come up here and buy the house 100% cash and just call it a deal type of thing. So but yeah, it's a good place. I'm really happy about it. I lived in LA before this, and so when I
mm.
came up here, I just never went back. My girlfriend was up here, my family was up here, and I just started renting my apartment down on Airbnb and started making money while being up here with my family. So it was amazing.
So are you in Sacramento now then?
Yep.
How close to the city are you? Are you a little bit out? Are you?
No, I mean, I'm literally like one town out, which is called Roseville, Rockland. So that's literally like a 10-15 minute drive to Sacramento.
Okay, okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
And you have some amazing national parks in
Oh,
California,
yeah.
right? Have you been
Yeah. We
to
went to
Yosemite?
Yosemite.
And
Yeah. I went to
yeah.
Yosemite last year
Oh,
for my first time, actually.
actually, for real? Did you go? Did you see like El Capitan and the
We saw everything.
Half
We went at
Dome?
the most perfect weather, man. It was just amazing, and we went all the way up where it's like 8,000 feet elevation. So you're like at the top of the top. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. You drink a nice cold beer up there.
Oh,
It hits
so good.
differently. It hits it differently.
So good. I would love to go to California, the national parks. I want to go to San Francisco and see if it's actually like how people say it is. LA, just because I want to go there. I went to New York a couple of weeks ago. I've been to New York a few times, but never made the trip across uh, to the West Coast. I'd like to do like a road trip across
Yeah.
America, and
Let
because
me
it's just
know. Let me know if you ever come this way. I will happily show you around wherever I can. I've lived in LA. I've been to San Francisco many different times, so I can definitely give you my version of it, and then you can kind of go explore on your own too.
absolutely, man. Well, America's just it's a cool place. It's so vast. The difference, it's like multiple countries in one. In the
Yeah,
UK,
yeah.
we've not got much. I joke with people that in the UK, you either go to London or you sort of just don't and you stay where you are. Whereas in
Where are
America,
you?
you've got
Where are you in? Are you in London?
so interestingly, and I was thinking of talking about this during the meat and potatoes of the episode, but I moved out of London about when COVID happened. I was
Okay.
living in London for 5 years, loved it. London as a city is amazing, but I wanted a bit more space. Oh, that was it. We were talking about wanting or like waking up early and
Yeah.
having space where not many people are about. I wanted that like more and all of the time, and being able to go to places in the middle of the day where there aren't many people. I can have some peace and quiet. You just can't have that in London. And also, property prices in London were a lot more expensive. If I moved out of London, so I'm about an hour outside in the town I grew up in called Canterbury, and there's just an ability to get a place. So I've got my own little flat. Like I've got this room which I is my office where I can work, and then I've got my bedroom. It's
Amazing.
just a much nicer place for me
Yeah,
to
my
live.
girlfriend and I are actually planning a trip at the end of this, well, not to, like September timeframe, to go to New York for a few days and then go to London, because I really want to go watch Manchester City play.
Man City's not in London.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, we want to go to London and then like kind of explore, just go get to the UK. But yeah,
Okay, I see what you mean. Okay, yeah, just see them against the London team. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
man. Well, if you're in London, hit me up because yeah, live there, work there, love the city. I still try to go into London once a week or so because I'm only an hour out on the train. There's a certain energy you get from cities, which I don't get here. Although I
Right.
like the peace and quiet and the benefits that come with living out of the city, but sometimes I just want to go in there and feed off the energy, meet
Exactly.
people that have ambition, and sort of thrive off that, go into different offices, and just feel a bit more alive.
Dude, I love that. That's literally the reason why I go to San Francisco. My girlfriend doesn't really care for it. She's like, I could do without. I was like, I just love this energy. There's just people everywhere. You don't know who's doing what. Like,
Exactly.
it's just a different vibe, and that's what I enjoyed about LA, to be honest with you. Like, I was in the Bay Area for a long time, and it was very like tech focused, so everyone's kind of like got this day job getting paid really well, but I was really after like this scrappy like side hustling. Like, you talk to somebody and they're just like, oh yeah, I'm working at the Starbucks, and then I'm also running a clothing
Love it.
company,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then I'm also, you know what I mean, I'm like, oh, that's what I like to hear. Like, that's what I want to be around. So that's literally kind of the energy that always puts me at a place where I'm like, oh man, this is where I belong. So that's what I enjoyed about LA. That's kind of what I miss up here in Sacramento. But also, like, the last couple of years have been weird, and I'm starting to see more like meetups and different things pop up. So I'm gonna start being a little bit more, into those little groups and see how that goes. But yeah, I miss that part of LA for sure. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. Zlatko, do you read books a lot?
I'm more of an audiobook guy, like Audible and things like that. Very, very rarely. I'm more of like reading articles, not necessarily like reading books. I love listening to books. Like,
Well,
I'm listening to
most
books
business
or
books
podcasts.
are pretty much just an article, or they could have been an
Right,
article.
right. Why do you ask? Which book are you?
Well,
Is there
I,
anything
I was
specific?
I was sort of looking behind you, and I can see is that 3 books and an anchor?
Yeah, so I have Clarity by Jamie Smart. I don't know if you read that. It's a really good book.
No.
The other one is the Michelle Obama. That's my girlfriend's book. And then I have a Osho book up here as well. And then I also have Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson as well. So I have a couple of different books up there. Um, but yeah, Atomic Habits, different things. I've read those books. Like, I've actually like read those books. Have you read Atomic Habits?
I love Atomic Habits.
Yeah, I mean,
Pretty
that's one of
life
those books you
changing.
need to reread like 5 times in your
Yeah,
lifetime.
it lives up to the hype. But
It
I asked
does.
about it partly because I sort of saw some books behind you, and it's something I've got into recently. And with the podcast about what is my brain, what is in my brain, I'm consuming knowledge from books and trying to learn stuff to make myself better. So I'm interested to see or hear what people find interesting in books, and have recommendations, things to read, whether people like fiction as well. How people
I'm
consume it as
not.
well is also interesting.
See, I'm not a fiction guy. I'm like, give me like real life stuff. Give me like a little bit of the self help. I'm not like huge on it. I mean, I like certain topics there. I'm more of a. I like hearing about how people came about. I like seeing starting points, and I like seeing where they are now, and seeing the things that they had to go through. Like, that's the kind of stuff. I'm very much like documentary, almost like based. I love that kind of stuff. And then when it
Yeah.
correlates to like the business side of things, I mean, that's my 5-star review right there.
I enjoy that,
Yeah.
and I'm the same, but I'm trying to do a bit more of escaping that and letting my mind go somewhere else.
Right. Right.
I do it more through watching films, to be honest, and
Yeah.
TV series, and just not thinking about work or improving myself, and just getting lost in a story. I love
Yeah.
stories, but yeah, I'm not a big fiction book guy. I'm
Are you
trying
a
to read
writer?
read a few more.
Do you produce blog posts, newsletters, all that stuff?
Yeah, yeah. I think writing is like the most fundamental skill for anyone to learn. Being good at writing, being good at communicating through the written form, because it is such a big part of our lives, and
It
is used in
is.
so many aspects of it, and not just business. When we're dating and like trying to communicate with people we want to get with, when we're like complaining about something or want to change something, or whether we oh man, there's just so many different areas of our
Yeah.
life we use writing, and being able to communicate effectively. When you're making plans with friends, there's always that one person, and it's probably because they can communicate in the written form very well. um,
Exactly.
uh,
Exactly. I
and
love
so
it. I'm starting to do a lot more of that, so I'll make sure to run some stuff by you, because I feel like you're in the same hemisphere as I am in terms
yeah,
of like all the different projects and podcasts and all that stuff. So
yeah.
I'd love to kind of keep that rolling. But Yeah, James, I really appreciate you being on, first guest on the new podcast, man. Like I can't thank you enough for this. So I'll make sure to um, let you know when everything is ready and clips are ready and all that stuff, and make sure you have access to all of it, and you can do whatever you want, or you can just reshare it, whatever you want to do, my man.
Good man. Well, fantastic chatting to you.
All right, cheers, brother. Have a good one. I'll chat with you soon.
Cheerio.
Well, you made it to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for tuning into What Is My Brain podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you got some value out of it. Make sure you hit the subscribe button or the follow button to get notified when new episodes are live. I'm out. Thank you.